Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We are pleased to have you participate this evening in our Cambrooks webinar, Tackling the School Meal Dilemma for Metabolic Disorders. My name is Mary Susan Spears, and I'm one of the clinical specialists with Ajinomoto Cambrook. And I wanted to just provide a little bit of housekeeping as we get started. Everyone is on mute for the webinar, but feel free to enter any questions you may have in the chat box at any time. And at the end of the presentation, we will answer those. The presentation is being recorded. You should have gotten a little warning saying that it is being recorded. And if you would like any slides or the low protein resources that we discussed today, please email my colleague, Bridget Tomick at btomick@cambrook.com. And if you wouldn't mind, at the very end of today's presentation, a short survey will pop up as you are leaving. Please take a few moments to fill that out and let us know how we did, what things we can do better, and what subjects you might be interested in hearing for our next session. At this time, I have the pleasure of introducing our one of our co-founders, Lynn Paolella. She has inspired all of us on how to provide delicious, healthy, low-protein meals for those with metabolic disorders. So Lynn, I'll let you take it away.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us. My name is Lynn Paolella, and I am the founder of Cambrook Therapeutics, named after my two young adult children, Cameron and Brooke, who have classical PKU. The school lunch program, or more importantly named the school nutrition program, not only applies to lunch in the school place, but it also includes breakfast, before and after school snacks, as well as summer school programs where federal funds exist for public schools. So I developed the program initially for Cameron and Brooke in 2002, but also with our community in mind. And it is suitable for grades K through 12, and oftentimes through colleges as well. So I learned what worked and what didn't work for their nutritional needs. And I've adapted this presentation to hopefully address the concerns and the needs of your child. So Mary Susan, can you please forward to the next? So Cambrook is delighted to educate you on how to improve access to medical foods at school through the National School Nutrition Program. Meet my kids. This is Cameron and Brooke. Well, when they were younger and maybe about 7 years ago. So for me, the school nutrition program, which began in 2002, came about for two very important reasons. And the first reason was that in 2002, Cameron was in the 4th grade and Brooke would be starting kindergarten in the fall. And I believed that they, along with every other child with a metabolic disorder, such as PKU, had the right to walk through the hot lunch line, just like every other kid at school. And maybe more importantly than the first reason was that I received a call from a PKU mom from Alabama in 2001 expressing sheer frustration as she told me that every single month she was faced with the painful decision, do I pay this bill or do I feed my child? And that statement would tear at any mother's heartstrings. But for me, I knew I had to do something. So as a first resort, I shipped her child a huge care package of low protein foods with my compliments. But of course, we all know that that is just not sustainable. So I reached out to the community and I searched the web endlessly until I found my answer, which was in the guidance book for school food service staff. And it was written by the United States Department of Agriculture's Food and Nutrition Service. The USDA is a federal support system that is tied to a metabolic child's individual nutrition needs and their civil rights. So I want you to hold that thought on the Alabama mom, because I'm going to get back to you on her at the end of the program. So next slide. So I'm going to break down today's presentation into 4 parts. Creative lunchbox meal ideas for those days that you simply wish to brown bag it. The school nutrition program, it's your child's civil right to be included. How to communicate your child's dietary needs to the school in a friendly manner and personalize it to meet your child's needs. Next slide. And next slide. So brown bagging nutritious lunches for school every day that offers variety and that tastes good can challenge even the most creative people. I was determined back then that a low protein diet does not have to be equated to a life sentence of really bad tasting food. That was then, this is now, those days are long gone. You've got to get creative. Next slide. So here are some lunch ideas I'd like to share with you, and I've broken this page down into 2 columns. So an assortment of favorite sandwich options the community has shared with me is in the left column, and the various breads they can be prepared with are in the right column. And for your convenience, Cambrook adds huge variety with over a dozen manufactured bread types for your creative sandwich ideas. And now consider the various bread selections with preparation options for your sandwiches, including toasting, grilling, rolling, wrapping, panini, and on the grill barbecue style. Bottom line is you got to get creative, or more importantly, get your child involved in communicating his or her sandwich ideas and preparation choices, because they are more likely to eat what they've had a hand in choosing or preparing themselves. So here are some helpful hints that I'm going to share about building a sandwich. The sandwich consists of multiple parts. I'm not really teaching anything y'all don't know, but it does. It consists of multiple parts. And there's the bread, there's the veggies, there's the fats, and then there's finally the spread or the dip. So the bread you choose is what makes a sandwich convenient, healthy, filling, and holds all of your ingredients together. The veggies and the greens are one of the quickest ways to increase satiety or feeling full, as well as adding to its overall fiber and nutritional value. Adding vegetables to your sandwich, such as avocado, shredded carrot, cucumber, tomato, pickles, and sprouts, along with a variety of greens, including spinach or a mixture of lettuce, all add substance, flavor, color, and texture. And the fats, such as mayo, cheese slices, cream cheese, or butter, are all good options and create a barrier from the veggies that might otherwise release some moisture into the bread. And for example, your mayo or cream cheese or butter, consider dialing up the flavor by combining with a little spice, sweetness, or seasonings, such as garlic or fresh herbs for a tasty flavor kick. And then finally, there's the spread or the dip. And spreads and dips can consist of low-protein cheese spread, guacamole, hummus, mustard, or ketchup, a favorite dressing, eggplant dip, such as, I don't know, a garlicky, lemony baba ganoush. You get the idea. A sandwich can be the ultimate comfort food, and the power of a good sandwich lies in its ingredients. So next slide. And for snacks and lunch sides, make your own Lunchables or Snackables. The ideas are endless. You gotta avoid battling food boredom, and maybe even, print a list of those favorite foods your kids love and post it somewhere that will inspire them, like on the fridge. The ideas on this slide are also great after-school healthy snacks that your kids will love and may actually be able to prepare some of them on their own. Next slide. And finally, bring out those thermoses and fill them with as many hearty meals as you can dream up, especially during the winter months. I often rely on two categories of thermos-friendly dishes. So there's pasta and rice and hearty soups. So did you know that you can actually cook rice in a thermos? It's true. Low protein rice is one of those staple foods probably in everybody's pantry. And if not, you got to get it. But the recipe idea works so incredibly well. It is absolutely foolproof and kids love it. And here's how it works when you add ingredients to the thermos in the morning before school and it's cooked by lunchtime. So it's 3 steps. Add boiling water to an insulated thermos to heat the inside. Dump the water out after a few minutes, and then you add uncooked low protein rice, boiling liquid. It could either be water or broth, or and butter or oil, seasoning, and even if you have any leftover cooked vegetables from the day before, put those in, stir it up, close the thermos, and by lunchtime, it's completely cooked. The rice is fluffy and it's ready to consume. Several recipes are available on our website for your reference. And if you are interested, they're listed under short grain rice. And then the next slide, I would now like to turn the presentation over to my colleague, Bridget Tomic. She is a registered metabolic dietitian, and she is our clinical specialist at Campbrook. Bridget?
Hi, everyone. I hope you are well. Lynn and I talked about just adding some tips and tricks, and I like to work with our foods and try everything out. So we've got a week's worth of meals I'm going to quickly run through. I tried to make everything in the morning and see how it was about 4 hours later. So all of these pictures would be sitting out and worked great. So Lynn already talked about the sandwich, but a few additional tips. Here, the key is really keeping out moisture. You could use a heartier option like the Cam burger bun, which is great, and toast it. It makes the texture really nice, especially by lunchtime. The key is just make sure it's completely cooled before adding to a lunch bag or a lunch box. And then if you're going to assemble the sandwich, you want to dry the veggies or whatever you're adding as much as possible. I opted to let a kiddo, make this or assemble it at lunch, and it was really, really good. Next slide. And then Lynn talked about Lunchables. So I wanted to try that out with bagel Lunchables. And so again, I toasted these. I sprayed them with a little bit of cooking spray to brown them a bit. And then a kiddo could assemble with marinara and low protein cheese. And they could eat that cold or microwave for just a short period of time. They turned out great. Another alternative would be to use the Tuscan pizza crust. You could cut them with a cookie cutter or a biscuit cutter. They work great. And never throw your low protein foods away. You could turn whatever you have left into breadcrumbs and bread veggies and send those as well. Next slide. I think a lot of people complain about the tortillas or don't know what to do with them. I think Lynn would agree they're hard to work with and kind of can be stiff. So when we talked through this, she said the best thing to do was make a quesadilla. I really like to add a fat. So butter or oil really helps to brown your low protein foods. And this was sitting out for 4 hours. It was really good. So it keeps quite well. And I just made it in the morning, let it cool, threw it in a lunch bag. Next slide. And then the thermos. I really wanted to try out pasta in the thermos. You can't really make it in a thermos, but you could preheat the thermos, make it good and hot. So boiling water for 3 to 5 minutes and then get rid of that water. I did make the pasta in the morning, but honestly, I think you could just use leftover pasta, either warm it in the microwave. I prefer it actually sauteed in a pan, throw it in the thermos and seal it. It was still warm after 4 hours. It was a nice texture. It did not dry out. And then I mixed it with my marinara over here, made a little garlic toast and peach. It was really good. Next slide. And then the grilled cheese. So that is very similar to everything I've done. But one other thing to consider, like Lynn said, is getting your kids involved. Prep the night before, have them pick their sides, peppers, fruits, whatever that is, veggie straws, chips, whatever that might be. Assemble that, make it easy on yourself, and prepare what you need to in the morning, let it cool. The grilled cheese, the quesadilla, toasting all took me maybe 5 minutes. Let that cool. And really what I wanted to show is these meals, they look like everyday meals. There's nothing worse than hearing a family say, my kid's being made fun of because our meals don't look good. So I really wanted to show how easy it was to combine both Cranbrook foods with some grocery store items. And I think they turned out great. So these tips are available and slides are available if you see something here you'd like. I'm going to turn it back over to Lynn.
Thank you for that, Bridget. You really did a good job.
Thank you.
You can do it. I know our moms can do it too. They do. They look great. Thank you very much. Okay, so dietary accommodations, what it is and who is eligible. Next slide. So here's a little trivia. Federally assisted meal programs provide nutritionally balanced, low-cost meals in over 100,000 public and nonprofit private schools that serves more than 31 million children each and every single school day. These school districts get cash subsidies from the USDA for each meal they serve. In return, schools must serve lunches that meet federal requirements. Next slide. So a dietary accommodation is a requirement that is related to providing a meal substitution to children with disabilities participating in school meal programs. Pictured here is the cover of the guidance book, which is entitled Accommodating Children with Special Dietary Needs in the School Nutrition Program. And it is required to be located on site at all public schools in the United States. Next slide. So who is covered by this law? Under Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 and the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990, Congress ensures that children with disabilities have the same opportunities as children in the general population to receive education benefits, which includes nutritionally balanced school meals. The law requires public school districts to eliminate barriers that would prevent a child from participating fully in the program and services offered in the school, and it makes it clear that substitutions to the regular meal must be made for children who are unable to eat school meals because of their disability at the same cost as the standard meal plan. So metabolic disorders such as PKU, homocystinuria, tyrosinemia, MSUD, urea cycle disorders, organic acidemias, etc., are all disabilities as described under Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 and the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990. Simply put, if a state gets federal funding, their public schools must accommodate special diets for covered disabilities. And another important thing to remember is that the Food and Nutrition Service Program also administers several other programs in addition to lunches that provide healthy food options, including the school breakfast program, the after-school snack program, summer food service program, and the special milk program, which could include the formula if it's something that the family needs. Next slide. So in order to make low-protein food substitutions available for our children, the school must have on file a written statement. This is super important. They must have on file a written statement signed by a licensed physician, a physician's assistant, a registered dietitian, or a nurse practitioner, indicating what the child's disability is, what foods must be omitted from the child's diet, and what foods must be substituted. The purpose for requiring a written statement is twofold. First, it ensures that the nutrition integrity of the school meal will not be compromised by the substitution. And more importantly, it ensures that decisions about specific food substitutes are made by persons who are highly qualified to prescribe them. Therefore, the requirement helps to protect both the child and the food service personnel who are working to meet the child's needs. And also know that it is absolutely not acceptable, an acceptable alternative when a school says that we will only provide your child with fruits and vegetables. Why? Because fruits and vegetables alone are not a nutritionally balanced meal. Next slide. So do I need an IEP or 504 plan in place to receive accommodations for the school meal plan? I will explain. An IEP or individual education plan is exactly that. It's an education plan, and it is not required for a dietary accommodation. A 504 plan is a written management plan outlining how the school will address the individual needs of your child. 504 plans have become increasingly more common, especially for children with food allergies, such as anaphylaxis and emergency care. It too is not required for a nutrition plan, but it can be implemented depending on preferential requirements by the school's food service department. Both IEP and 504 plans can be instituted in the school meal program as a source of additional management guidelines and/or school funding if the school's budget is constrained. And for the reference, both Cameron and Brooke did not have an IEP or 504 plan in place for their dietary accommodations. Next slide. So I'm just going to summarize this because I know it's really important. I'm going to summarize what I just covered. Dietary accommodations are required by all public schools where states have received federal funds. It's not required by charter schools, private or religious school programs, although they may accommodate those nutrition needs out of goodwill. Dietary accommodations do not require an IEP or 504 education plan, although these vehicles may be used by your school for tracking and additional funding resources. If your child is currently on an IEP or 504 education plan, you must still provide a written submission by your healthcare professional indicating the disability and the meal accommodation. And for your reference, I have checked with numerous USDA food and nutrition programs, state agencies around the country to make certain that special dietary accommodations for children with metabolic disorders like your children will be upheld by the law, and that I was speaking the same language as them. And the reply continues to be, to this day, a resounding yes. Next slide. Communicating to the school and how to advocate for a successful partnership. So who do you approach and in what order? I recommend reaching out first to the school principal. You definitely need to reach out to the food services director. That's the most important group you can reach out to. I started with the school principal and also the food services department. You can also use the nurse, the teacher, and finally, the USDA Department of Education School Nutrition Program if the school is struggling to meet your child's needs or wishes to learn more about how to best implement the meal program. In my own family's experience, I approached the principal who was really not certain how to navigate this whole situation, but because of my request and really the good relationship that we had, he was more than willing to work with me in conjunction with the school's food service director. It was a real partnership and we navigated it together. Recall that the launch of Cambrook's school lunch program originally took place for my kids in the 2002 school year, which was in the early days of the program. We had Cambrook had a fairly nice range of low protein foods back then, such as ready-made breads, bagels, pastas, baking mixes. And even then, Cameron's and Brooks School was willing and happy to accommodate them by making foods from scratch, such as grilled cheese sandwiches, veggie burgers, waffles, and even freshly baked cookies. 21 years later, we have so many more food choices available that are nutritious and provide heat and serve options, which are so much easier to implement in the school meal program. And honestly, who would have thunk that 2 decades later, the world would be trending toward plant-based foods? There are so many more available options out there to meet your child's needs. Next slide. So the school nutrition program is a partnership between you, your child, the school, and here are some key messages to consider. I cannot underscore enough. It is paramount that a friendly approach is used when meeting with the school personnel to encourage a friendly partnership that doesn't create friction for your child. It's helpful to communicate to the school that the diet is fairly straightforward and incorporates a comprehensive range of easy to prepare, heat and serve low protein foods that will be used in conjunction with options from the regular school menu. And if you're met with resistance by the school or the school's food service department, you can provide a subtle reminder that it's your child's right to receive the nutritionally balanced meal accommodation and that it's required by law. And if they need further justification, refer them to the USDA Office for Food and Nutrition Programs, Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. I will provide you with resources at the end of the program. Next slide. So some helpful hints. Building the relationship between you and food service personnel is key. I had a great relationship with the food service director and 2 food prep personnel in the cafeteria. In fact, for my Brooke, 20 years ago, these 2 awesome women whom Brooke called by first name, they would allow her to go into school a half hour earlier in the morning so she could begin making her own food that she'd eat that afternoon for lunch. She helped make her own waffle sticks, grilled cheese sandwiches, pasta, and even had a hand in making those fresh baked cookies. This was not necessary for Brooke to go in earlier, but she and the lunch ladies worked it out together, and Brooke actually thought it was pretty cool and she loved the attention. I urge you to make sure food service staff contact you with any questions or concerns related to a substitution option if they run out of a particular food on a given day, or if your child prefers to eat something different than what's being offered on a given day. Whatever the case may be, I recommend that you, the parent, and the food service director or personnel each be accessible for each other. Next slide. So here's a page on the right side from Cambrook School Lunch Program, and it consists of 3 components that help you understand your responsibilities, the school's responsibilities, and helpful hints for your child's success. The Parent's Instruction Guide is designed for simplicity, and it consists of 4 easy steps. 1, complete the medical forms with your child's clinician. Deliver the signed medical forms and the food services guide to your school representative. Provide Cambrook's food services guide to the school at your consultation meeting, which includes sample menus and recipes. And finally, follow up with the school to ensure that orders have been placed ahead of time and a scheduled start date for your child's low protein meals is established. I highly recommend that you begin this communication 3 to 4 months earlier than needed, or even better, prior to the end of the previous school year. So in other words, if your child is needing accommodations beginning in September, I personally would begin communications with the food service personnel at minimum in April or May before summer vacation. Next slide. So additional components of the school lunch program by Cambrook include the eating and feeding evaluation and information card, which is a medical statement for students with special dietary needs, the food service guide, institutional price and account application. Next slide. So our food services guide explains the mandate for dietary accommodations. It demystifies dietary requirements, and it provides a simple grocery and meal planning guide. We prepared the food services guide as a turnkey solution for the food service professional. School principals, guidance counselors, dietitians, cooking staff, and purchasing agents all play a role in the success of your child. Included in our food service guide are a menu calendar, a shopping list, meal recipes, which are easy to prepare and assimilate to the student with their peers. Both hot and cold lunch items are represented, and a complete nutritional fact panel and amino acid profile is also provided. And please know that our program can be used in its entirety or merely used as a guide to showcase what worked for Cameron and Brooke and many other families that followed in our footsteps. You'll simply need to contact Cambrook and request your school nutrition program package to get started. Next slide. So when you get your program, personalize it with great looking low protein meal options. The meal should be designed to meet your child's specific needs and likes, because it's certainly in no one's interest to have foods available that your child simply won't eat. You must customize. Next slide. Okay, so we've learned that every child has the right to a nutritionally balanced meal, right? Guess what? That includes the protein. So I have checked with the USDA on this, and they have confirmed that if a child's meal does not meet the standard requirement for protein, the approved protein source can be requested in writing from a licensed physician, nurse practitioner, or dietitian. The lunch or the meal, including the protein, the formula, will cost no more to the family than the standard cost of a school meal. I'm not suggesting that you insist the school purchase your child's formula unless you live in one of those states that does not provide ample coverage for formulas. This would provide an additional financial safety net for your family if you need it. Next slide. As a secondary option for getting your protein formula covered, accommodated at school is through this is a long one, it's called the fluid milk substitutions in the school nutrition program. And this proposed rule reflects amendments made by Section 102 of the Child Nutrition and WIC Reauthorization Act of 2004 to the Richard B. Russell National School Lunch Act regarding substitutes for fluid milk in the National School Lunch Program. There are milk substitution and documentation requirements with this rule. And if the student requires non-dairy milk substitution based on a disability, it's got to be based on a disability, not just a dietary alternative. It's got to be based on a disability, and a medical statement is provided by a licensed medical professional for the substitution due to the disability. The proposed rule would make school food authorities responsible for the substitution and its expenses. And if this is the route you'll take, it's important to distribute the signed documentation to your school food authorities as soon as possible, or actually prior to the start of the school calendar year. Next slide. So in addition to the school lunch program, we've covered that nutrition programs include breakfast, before and after school snacks, summer school programs, including milk substitutions, where participating schools receive federal funding for meal programs. Next slide. So for meal accommodations for your child that requires additional assistance beyond the school nutrition services personnel, particularly when the school is unwilling to provide the meal service, I recommend that you refer to the state agencies that administer the school nutrition program, which can be found by clicking on the USDA link as seen in the above slide. The USDA lists each local state agency, and we can get this to you at the end of the program if you're interested. These state agencies will go up to bat for a struggling family. They will help define the law, and they will ensure that a resistant school knows what their responsibility is. I have contacted numerous state agencies over the years on behalf of my kids, our metabolic community, and your children, and the Child Nutrition and Health Services branch at the USDA have gone as far as paying visits in person to some of those resistant schools. Why? Because it's their job to enforce the law. I honestly don't think you need this kind of rigor, but they will be there to help guide you if you are in need of their support. These agencies are really full on board with what I'm presenting to you today, and they are an important resource for assistance when schools try to deny your child's accommodations. Next slide. So if you have a non-compliant school and you need to contact the USDA for assistance, using that link on the previous slide, it will take you to this landing page, which provides contact information for the Food and Nutrition Service Program. You'll see that it lists the states on the right side in alphabetical order. You can scroll down to your own state or simply type in your state in the blank field to bring you to your information page. Next slide. And I've used California as an example, and here's what that landing page looks like. It will provide you with all the contact information, including the website, the director's name, phone number, address, etc., for your state's Department of Education School Nutrition Program. You can see in the various programs listed on this page, including the National School Lunch Program, School Breakfast Program, Special Milk Program, Summer Food Service Program, etc. You need to ask for the program you are inquiring about by name, for example, the School Lunch Program or Special Milk Program. Also, if you live in a larger district like Texas, for example, there's an additional support system in place that's headed up by a registered dietitian that would provide extra support over and above that to your on-site food services director. Next slide. And here's another resource that I'd like to point out, which is the most updated guidance on federal law, with a Q&A section related to the special nutrition programs for accommodating disabilities. Of notice is question number 7, which speaks specifically to PKU, and it also applies to related disorders. This site provides a colorful interactive map, which provides additional resources and contact info for resolving disputes with the school. You simply click on your state for all that contact information. Next slide. So how do I communicate with the USDA when the school is denying my child's meal accommodation? This is where a parent or a caretaker can feel shy or uncomfortable. So I'm going to do a small little role play as if I was a really young mom again and reaching out to advocate for my Brooke. Okay, so here it goes. I click on my state, I find the contact info, and I call them up. When they answer the phone, I say, hi, Massachusetts Department of Education Nutrition Service Department. This is Lynn Paolella. I'm the mom of Brooke Paolella. She attends the Boston School District in Massachusetts, And because she has a rare condition known as PKU that requires special dietary accommodations, she's qualified for the federally assisted meal program. My child's clinician filled out all of the required paperwork, and it has been submitted to Brooks School, but the school is denying her meal plan. That's it. That's it. They will likely add you, ask you a few questions, but you know how to answer those because they're going to be related to your child and his or her needs. And the USDA will take it from there. And I got to tell you, 2 weeks ago, I'm always calling the USDA department because I want to make sure that the information I'm giving you is up to the minute. But I called somebody just 2 weeks ago. I had a conference call with a woman. Her name was Denise Courtney, who's a registered dietitian. She is head of nutrition and education, school wellness, and a training coordinator for the food and nutrition program at the USDA for elementary and secondary education, to once again confirm that my message to you all continues to be on point, and it is. As a longtime board member of NetPad, I invited an associate from the USDA Massachusetts Department of Education and Food Services years ago to present on the school nutrition program during our PKU and Allied Disorders Conference. And their representative did a fabulous job and helped unpack all that I am presenting to you today. Next slide. So this represents a letter from 2013 written by a dietitian from Mount Sinai Hospital's Metabolism Clinic in New York. And it's in support of the school lunch program for one of her patients in the New York City school system. The dietitian's request, as well as requests from the family for meal accommodations, kept getting rejected. Next slide. So despite all those rejection responses from the school, she contacted me, my friend Angela. She's a dietitian from Mount Sinai, and I got involved and I introduced the family by way of their dietitian to the USDA School Nutrition Services Department, and we created together a partnership between the family, the clinic, the school food services director, and the USDA School Nutrition Services Program, and we got it done. Shown here are letters of support from the USDA to me, and appreciation for the clinic for our successful communication and collaboration in support of a child. A single child is where it started. And that opened the doors immediately for numerous other metabolic children in the New York City school systems. They never had an issue from that point forward. So next slide. This overview was written to increase your understanding of your child's civil rights and the responsibilities regarding your child's special dietary needs at school. This guide is not intended to address specific needs that may be unique to your child. So in closing, I'm going to go back to that story of the woman from Alabama who in 2002 had to choose between paying her utility bills or feeding her child. This program, even in its infancy at the time for Cameron and Brooke, provided nutritionally balanced and low-cost meals each and every school day for her family and for those families that would follow. Cambrook's school nutrition program is available at the same cost as the standard school meal, and for those families that earn at or below current income eligibility guidelines, you are encouraged to contact your school or district to fill out a school meal application, which grants free or reduced price benefits. Today, Cambrook has served metabolic children in over 400 school systems nationwide that require these important nutritional services. And I can tell you hands down that these services have contributed to our children's health, their well-being, and equally important, to their self-esteem. And for you, the parents, The school nutrition program is a government assistance program that supports your child's nutritional needs, and it has provided an additional financial safety net for those families that require the additional assistance to feed their children. I am proud that Cranbrook is available for you and your family where these important services are needed. And last slide. And lastly, I would like to introduce you to my 3 kids today. Bryce, the older brother on the left, is 33 years old and living in San Francisco. He's a chemist and working in cancer research. He's also on the board of directors for the California Coalition for PKU and Allied Disorders, which keeps him very connected to the metabolic community that his siblings, Cameron and Brooke, are a part of. Cameron in the center is 31 years old and living in Massachusetts. He's a registered nurse and working in Boston. And Brooke is 26 years old and also lives in Massachusetts. She's a graphic designer, and she too is working in Boston. Today, Cameron and Brooke are inseparable best buddies. Next slide. And now I will turn the conclusion of our presentation over to Mary Susan Spears. Again, she's a registered metabolic dietitian, and she is Cranbrook's senior clinical specialist.
Thank you so much, Lynn, for a wonderful presentation. I do want to give everyone just a few additional resources if you're looking for some simple ways to explain PKU or any of the other allied disorders to your schools. These are some websites for general metabolic disorders like NORD or your state newborn screening programs. And then there are disorder-specific organizations like NPKUA, NECPAD, HCU Network America. And you can see here on the right is some information that I got from the NPKUA website that provides some wonderful resources if your child has PKU. For other disorders, we got permission from the HCU Network America to share their guide on what is HCU. And it's a very easy 2-page explanation that any school personnel should be able to understand, and then provide them with the information to how best support your child. So with that, we want to take the last few minutes and open it up for any questions. So Bridget, have you seen any questions come through yet?
Having a hard time getting my video back on. No questions have come through, but I know I had a question from a dietitian earlier in the week, Lynn.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think we are not trained in this, but we are really involved in it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a struggle. We want to help our families, and it can be really intimidating. One of the answers that she got from the school was, well, we only order from, you know, this company for foods. We're not going to order anywhere else. What would you say to that dietitian or family of how to move forward with getting low protein foods?
So bottom line, you know, if anybody wants to order or, you know, hopes to order from Cranbrook, that's great. It's not necessary. That's not why I'm presenting here today. Some schools might say that they only order from Sysco and they can only get foods from Sysco. But if Sysco does not provide the food parts that contribute to the nutritionally balanced meal, let's just say they need a veggie burger. Well, guess what? Most veggie burgers out in the general marketplace are produced with soy or textured, you know, vegetable protein. Those things are way too high in protein. They have to provide food products that are prescribed by their clinician. So if the clinician says that you need to have, let's just say either a veggie burger or a mushroom burger, they can recommend Cranbrook, they can recommend one of the other companies, that's totally fine. It's up to the school to find their resource for these products. But from my experience, they didn't want to go drill down into all of that. Cambrook has it, we're gonna order from Cambrook, and that's what they've done.
And Lynn, follow-up question. So you talked about having a letter that outlines the foods. Do you think it has to be, I always would just say fruits, vegetables, low protein foods. Do you think it needs to be more specific, or how do you think the letter should be framed to help families get what they need?
That is really personalized. For me personally, when Cameron and Brooke were younger, so they would eat a very low protein, almost trace amount of protein for breakfast in the morning. So for lunch, I wanted something to be a little bit medium. I did not require a specific amino acid breakdown for everything they ate, but that was me. That was our decision. That's not everybody's decision. There are other families that really want that full-on breakdown. And if they require it and the physician requires it, they have to provide that. So in our menus, for example, Cambrook's menus, we provide all of those nutritional breakdowns as well as the amino acid profile. So they can use those, or the dietitian that follows their child at clinic can work out a meal plan together. Or that's pretty much it. Or, they can, it's really going to be up to the family and the clinic. How rigid do you need, does the child need to be?
Yep. And then one more question. Do you think it's more impactful, if needed, to call the USDA from a parent or from a clinician, or both?
Both. I loved calling the USDA department because I'm a mom and I advocate like a mom. And that was really impactful. But also, even when Angela, this was the dietitian at Mount Sinai in New York City, she contacted the USDA department, and we actually ended up having a three-way conversation. And that was really good because Angela wants her patients to have a specific amount of protein. So they drill down that far. And also another thing I wanted to say is that either the family or the clinician can help create the meal plan based on specific protein quantities or specific amino acid quantities. If they need the school to get down to that level where they have to bring in a dietitian that weighs and measures all the foods, that's actually a requirement from the USDA. I don't try to do, like, I've never tried to push that because I never wanted to create friction between the child and the school, because it's not friendly, it's not helpful. But I would see if I could get my child's own dietitian involved and say, okay, here's a 30-day menu plan. Like, this is what Cambrook has. We have a 30-day meal plan that mirrors the regular school meal. So whether it's hamburgers or pizza or tacos or whatever, we mirrored that with a Cambrook product, with a Cambrook menu. And the child's dietitian can take what we have and take a look at that and say, okay, yep, we'll take this burger, we'll take this. And it's already got the information and the amino acid and protein values already figured out. Unless they want to figure it out themselves, which is just as easy for them, they can do that. They can work on personalizing it for their child or their patient.
I did notice that there were a few people that had their hands raised. We really can't unmute everyone. So if you would please write your questions in the chat, and that way we can make sure to get those answered for you. Andrea, we can't call on you. So if you can write your question in the chat. That would be wonderful. I know, Lynn, whenever I was the dietitian helping my families out,
Mhm.
a lot of times they would bring me the school's menu, what has been posted, because most schools, if you don't know, I mean, all of parents should probably know this, they have what's kind of a cycle menu. So they have 5 or 6 weeks of
Yeah,
menus planned that
yeah,
repeat every
that's
5 or
exact,
6
yep,
weeks.
yep,
And so a lot of times I could go in and say, okay, take, this is pizza day for everyone else at the school. Here's a Cambrook pizza that would be equal. And, you have the salad, you have the green beans or whatever. And so it was just maybe 1 or 2 items that really had to change
right.
on each meal.
And that's kind of the menu that we have, and I based our original menu on Cameron and Brooks' schedule, their meal schedule at school back then. It's gone through some iterations over the years, so it's updated more. But yes, it's definitely a cycle, and that's why we supply at least I think is it 20 or 30 meals today? I don't even remember, but it's about that. But again, personalize it. You might live in Texas, right? And maybe the menu in Texas would be very different than a menu in, New York, for example. There could be some cultural differences or whatever. But it's where I say you got to personalize it.
Definitely, we wouldn't have pierogies on the menus down here. But we would definitely have enchiladas or tacos. So
But those pierogies are really good.
And you just updated them, right, Lynn?
I just, yeah, they're completely new and improved. They're really good.
Yeah. Well, I'm not seeing anything come through. So if anyone would like the thermos rice, the slides, the presentation, the school lunch program, feel free to email me at btomic@cambrook.com. I'd be happy to provide you with anything we talked about today. And thank you so much, Lynn. I've learned a lot as a dietitian, and I hope this empowers families to get what they need in the school system.
And I'll just say one last thing. Lynn, LYNN @cambrook.com. Feel free to reach out to me with any of your questions or concerns, because I'll always help go up to bat for a struggling family.
thank you so much.
So thank you. Thank you
Have a
very
great
much.
evening, everyone.
Thank you.